Today's episode is an interesting one because this lady I have known forever. And we've never done a podcast together. So we will see where this leads. But listeners, be prepared for some interesting brain rewiring, anything you want to think of, but listen to this podcast because this lady is amazing. And her name is Blessing Enakimio. Dr. Blessing Enakimio, welcome to Lead to Excel podcast.
Thank you very much. I'm so pleased to be here.
I am really pleased to be here as well. So I'm going to start by saying, actually, let Blessing introduce yourself. I think that would be a good start. Who is Blessing?
That's a very, very long question to answer, isn't it? Okay, so I'm Dr. Blessing Enakimio, the CEO of Leg Global, amongst many other things. I run a few companies, but I like to define myself as a multi-potentialite, and I'm an event designer.
What?
Multi-potentialite.
Oh, I love that. Multi-potentialite. I love that. Yeah. Okay. What does that mean before you go on?
Okay. It means that I am multiple in my potential and I'm not fully defined. I always like to say I'm forever becoming more. So the best word I found was multi-potentialite. So I keep that close to my heart so that I don't restrict myself in being who I am, but I'm forever becoming more.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you. Okay, continue.
Okay, so I'm an event designer, and I am also an international businesswoman, and I facilitate international trade.
Wow, thanks for that, Blessing. And that new word, it's great. Now, I want us to kind of elaborate a bit on Blessing as a person. So just tell us a bit about you in terms of where did you grow up and, you know, where are you now, where you live now. So just give us a bit of background.
Okay, so I was born in London, in United Kingdom. I was here in my infant years, I think up to the age of 4. And then my parents relocated to Nigeria, so I went with them. So I did my education in Nigeria. I came back to England in my 20s, I think. Yeah, it must have been, because I came back for my university studies in England. I lived in London, but now I am in Kent.
Thank you so much. So in terms of your background, what did you study? You know, what was your degree in, and, you know, how, let's start there.
Okay, so my very first, I suppose my background, I started off life working before education, let's put it that way. So back in Nigeria, before I came out here, I would say I had to work. So I started off with a job. I think I was about 15 or 16. I started off with a business selling deodorant, I think it was. Yeah, I bought and sold deodorants. I bought and sold baby clothes. And then I got a job, which was very exciting at the age of 16 in the primary school. And I didn't have a job title. It was just the lady who did anything that needed to be done. So I covered all classes from nursery all the way till primary 6. Then in Nigeria, that's what it's called, which is year 6 here, I suppose, same thing. Yeah. And then when I then came over and went into university, I started off university in Nigeria, University of Ibadan. I did animal science. I did 1 year of animal science, and then I think that took 3 years because of all the strikes. So I came over to the UK and got into do psychology. I started off with psychology. I think I did up to 3 years. I couldn't afford to finish. So I carried on working because I was working full-time and studying part-time. I couldn't afford to finish. So I think at year 3 of university, I dropped out because of financial reasons. I carried on with my working career and built myself on, and then went on later to back into university, and I have a master's in education. amongst
wow.
many other qualifications now, I suppose.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So I want to dig a bit into you said you had to work. What was that like? And what do you mean by that? And what was that like?
And from about the age of 14, things started to change financially for my family. I got two older siblings. So they were in Polytechnic at the time. But I was still in secondary school, just rounding up. And I noticed that things changed. Things had changed financially significantly. You know, my dad went through a couple of scams that took everything he ever earned, his life savings, his everything, you know. So I was in a situation where if I wanted anything, I had to give it to myself. But I was okay to manage, you know, with whatever was happening and just joining with the family, being the baby of the house. I just got on with it. But I noticed one day I went into my parents' bathroom and I noticed that they were in their soap dish was a detergent in Nigeria called Omo. I don't know if you remember Omo.
I know that.
So it's a washing powder, essentially.
Yes.
That's what they had in their soap dish. So I thought to myself, hang on a minute, why are they using that to shower? Okay, I was able to buy my own little Joy soap, Imperial Leather, you know, with my little businesses. I was able to cover myself, but what's happening with my folks, you know, and I didn't like that. And I thought, I know my dad is doing his best. I know my mom's business. She's doing what she can. You know, she's keeping a roof over her head with her business. Maybe I can do more, you know. So that was why I started applying for jobs. And of course, my parents were not happy with it. You're not going to work. You're too young. You need to go to school. So a couple of jobs I applied for via my parents' friends. I did get the jobs, but of course they told my parents before they told me, and my parents declined it. So I never got to go. So in the end, I had to go behind their backs, which was very risky. But I did. I went for the interview, snuck out of the house, did all that, got the job. Of course, when I came back, I was told off and the usual. But then I said, but I just got a job. My mom didn't believe. She was like, if your father can't get a job, who's going to give you a job? You're only a kid. I said, but I did get it. And I'm starting on Monday. Wow. And I remember vividly that I had to go and stay during the period of the interviews and the training and everything. I had to go and stay in a friend's house, a family friend's house, to say that I was just visiting with them, but it's because I was going for the job interviews, a different series. I had to do that, you know. So I got the job. My mom was happy I got the job. And every time I got a salary, I'll bring my envelope back to her and I'll give it to her. So that added to the income of the house. And slowly but surely, the soap dish for me is that soap dish. There was no longer detergent in there. There was soap. There was Joy soap. I remember Joy. Wow. And for me, that was why I did it. And I think from then on, it's been a case of if I see anything that I don't like, I always say this saying, if it has to be, it's up to me. You know, that has just always been my drive. If it is to be, it's up to me. So if a problem gravitates towards the solution, so if I identify a problem, it's not for me to flag it, it's for me to solve it. Wow.
Blessed, you were 14, 15 at this time.
Yeah.
And you are the last born. Yeah. And usually what you tend to find with a lot of lastborns, this is not generalizing, but a lot of times lastborns are the ones that are chilled because they don't have to do much. And so what was it about Blessing, or what was it that actually made you, I don't know, is there something you grew up, I don't know, but why? I think my question is, what was it about you that made you say, I'm going to work? Why don't I stay after I've got younger ones? They can look after me. What was it about, what I'm trying to figure out what was going on in your brain to make you see that soap, that powder soap. In fact, what was it about the Omo? For those that know Omo or Ariel, and basically it literally is similar to what we use in a dishwashing powder now, or washing powder is similar. What was it about it that triggered in you that, okay, it's up to me? Because that's not what a 15-year-old will be thinking, usually, or most 15-year-olds.
I know that I wasn't going to use Omo to wash my body. We had run out of soap many months ago, if not maybe years ago, and I had been using soap to shower. How come? Because I was with my little trade buying it for myself. I could meet my own soap need, let's put it that way, and I don't know, but then I'd never thought that my parents would need my help. It wasn't what I was thinking at the time. But I just thought, if I can buy one for myself from the little I'm doing, the whole point of going into the deodorant business was because I wanted deodorant, and I thought, okay, the best way to do it is to sell it. If I owned it, then I can have one, isn't it? So I started trading in deodorant, and it's from church, isn't it? The lady who was doing it, I just took some from her and said, I haven't got capital. Can I take some? When I sell, I'll replenish. And the thing is, I'd grown up in a home that is quite entrepreneurial. My mom was a very vivid businesswoman. I saw her set up many women in business. So maybe innately I'd grown up seeing women empowered, maybe. So unconsciously, that was already my wiring, so to speak, that women can do stuff, because I'd seen my mom do it for women on the street. She would see women who were hawking, and she would call them in and say, okay, instead of selling what you're selling, I'll give you a crate of Coke, you sell it, bring back the money and take your profit. She had empowered quite a few women. So I'd seen that happen. So I took the same thing and approached people who were in business in church to say, give me some, I'll sell, and then I'll return the capital and take my profit. And that's how I started. So a simple thing of soap, I could do it. It wasn't a big deal. I was buying it for myself. So just buying 2 a month, it just means I have to sell more. That's how I saw it. So I took that on. But then it led me down the path of, actually, if I can do that, why just get only petty? I can go and get a job. It's not like I'm doing anything. University's on strike. It's not like I can get in. There's no money to go to university anyway. So why not? So I think for me, innately, it was as if, what else is there to do? That's how it was for me, I suppose.
Amazing. Actually, that is, I think you kind of answered the question I was going to ask next, because what I was trying to find out is, what had you seen? What was it? Because where did it come from? For a 15-year-old to really go out to get a job, for a 15-year-old to see there's a problem here, and I can do something about it. And I think what you've described is that your mom was doing something similar. So you had seen that empowerment. You had seen her empowering others. You had seen her running a business. You had seen her, see a problem with other people and solve it. And I think that's so important, because what we see as children is wired into our brain. Very subconsciously. She did not have to say anything to you. You saw it, it got wired passively. And when a problem came up, you knew what to do without even thinking about it. And that's so powerful. So I really thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you. So now bring us back now to the UK, because I really wanted us to get to the foundation, basically. And one of the things, because you've really talked a bit, what you said, you've talked a lot about that problem solving, see a problem, and it's up to you to solve it. I know you quite well, and I see that play out in you over and over. So in terms of coming to the UK, you then really, because what you said is that you couldn't afford to finish your degree in psychology. You didn't fall apart. You looked for a solution. It's the same thing playing out again, and then, in fact, even how you came to the UK, it's that whole process playing out. And then you moved on. Now you had a master's in education. And how did you then navigate through that to get into event designing? Yeah, if you just share that with us.
Okay, so coming to the UK in the first place was a case of, I have the option, I'm a British citizen. If I'm doing so much being in Nigeria with my folks, if I moved if I moved space, could I do more? That was the question. And I think the answer was an immediate yes. But then the question that followed was how, because how do I afford to get a flight ticket? Where am I going to stay? Blah, blah, blah. What are the logistics behind it? And I thought, okay, my mom's sister still lives here. No one knows what she's doing. I reached out to her. She said,
Can I just hold that thought, Blessing? I'm sorry, I'm going to keep interrupting
That's
you
fine.
because I need that. Okay, so during this whole thought process of what can I, I'm doing it here, how can I do it? Was this you driving this, or was it your parents? Who was this coming from?
It was me. My parents had their own issues they were dealing with. They were trying to stay afloat, so I was inconsequential. They were so drowned in what they were doing that I had the liberty to engage myself with my thoughts.
Wow.
Yeah. So someone could look at it and say, oh, you were rejected, you were abandoned. No, I wasn't. I had the free will to explore myself. My sister, my brother, they were off in their universities doing their stuff. I was home alone, with my parents, and I could just explore whatever I could. And I think that allowed me to dare myself, So it was a case of, if I'm going to go to the UK, I can't go empty-handed. I need to upskill. I need to make sure I have something I can do as soon as I get in. So little things that I was doing around the house, the baking, the stuff. I found a neighbor who I know ran a school for baking. So I registered with her. Again, I couldn't afford the fees. So in exchange, I can braid hair. So I said, I'll do your hair for a month in exchange for admission into your baking school. She agreed to it. Because my mom had a hairdressing salon as well as other things she was doing. So I had a lot of skills. I brought up in it. So I exchanged value. That's why I talk about value a lot. I exchanged my hairdressing skills to get access to her baking school. I qualified, did that, got that, happy with that. Then in some of the parents that I was working with, the kids who lived on the street, I worked with, except instead of you paying drivers and your nannies to take the kids to school, I can come around, there were about 10 of them, I can come around and pick everyone up, take them to school and bring them back every day, and we negotiated a rate. So I was earning from that as well.
How old were you at this time?
Probably
still as a teenager.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I did that. Then also, of course, there were a few girls there. They were having hairdressers coming and going, and I thought, no, I'll come pick your kids up, take them to my salon. I'll undo the hair, wash it, baby them, look after them. That Saturday, that means you're getting childcare as well, and their hairs are done, and I'll return them. So I had quite a lot of little jobs. And I had a lot of money I was making, for my age. It's not like I had to pay rent or anything. So I was making a lot of money. And all the money I was making from my job, the full-time job, was going straight into my mom, and she was reinvesting it in her business. So her business scaled because she had a lot of capital monthly coming in. Then the money I was making from these other little jobs, I could spend, if that makes sense. Wow. So I had enough cash flow for myself, and then I was also providing for my family, and my mom was just doing her magic with whatever I was bringing in. And she went from selling retail Coca-Cola to becoming the major distributor in all of Ikeja, from that. So for me, it was no longer a case of can we eat? We could eat. We could fuel the car. But that was me bringing in mine and my mom multiplying. Yeah. So the issue of now going abroad was who is going to do what you're doing here. Who is going to afford that sort of huge capital to do the shift? So if it's to be, it's up to me. So I remember deciding that it wasn't beyond me, but I didn't know the answer. So I was going to fast and pray, I remember. And I decided I was going to do 7 days fasting and praying. On the day one, someone said to me, why don't you go and speak to so-and-so, one of the parents of my children, so to speak, because I had my little children's club, because they travel a lot. So I went straight to her. I said, when I went to drop the kids, and I said, I wanted to travel. She's like, travel? Why? I said, I'm British, and I want to go back and study. And she was like, oh, but who's going to do all this stuff that you're doing for us? We become so dependent on you. I was like, well, it's my turn. I need to go and do something for me. She said, oh, that's not a problem. I'll buy your flight ticket. I said,
Oh,
what?
wow.
And that was it. Flight ticket sorted. Do you have a passport?
Wow.
I was like, passport? What is a passport? So,
Wow.
that's just the journey. And I carried on. I got my
Yes.
British, because my parents hadn't
Yes.
done my British passport either. So I went and ahead, got my British passport, got my Nigerian passport. Again, these are from parents helping out, chipping in, oh, you've done this for my kids. You've done this, you've done that. Okay, what do you need? How much do you need? And that was it. And I just somehow figured it all out and got on a plane and arrived here with my suitcase and slept on the floor for a good 3 months.
Wow. Let's take a break there, because there's a lot to unpack there. That is amazing. You know something you said, and it always comes back to that saying. You keep saying it is down to me. If it has to be done, it's down to me. And there are two things you did which I find really powerful. You started fasting and praying.
Mm-hmm.
And you see, that is so powerful in the sense that once we are connecting to God to hear what God is saying, it helps us to quieten down and stop moving and trying to figure things out. In the process, you're able to hear from God, because I always say that, see, we are spirits. God is a spirit, and he can speak to us. He's always speaking to us, but most times we're not hearing because we're just constantly moving. But insights as a Christian is when God speaks to your spirit. And a lot of times we don't hear it. But when you don't quieten to pray, and there's something powerful about praying, because we're praying, and the good type of prayer is you're listening. That's the good type of prayer. And when you listen, you hear. And it's so great that when that person came to you on that first day to say, ask this person, if you were not in that calm, quieting mode, you would have brushed it off and say, I don't need to. You did actually almost do, why would I speak to this person? But because you're in that quieting mode, listening and being able to take action, you took the action. So you're not just praying and praying and praying for 7 days. You prayed, you listened, you acted. And that's so powerful. And you asked. That's the key. You asked. And when you ask, the opportunities come. I love it. I love it. I love it. Right. So then you came to the UK. And when you got here, you did, we don't, because of time, we can't go into all the details. In fact, I think, Blessing, we need to come back and do a part 2, part 3, and see where this leads us. But you came in, and I want us to now go through, in fact, it's interesting because I did not realize that you had started doing hair back in Nigeria, because the story here is that I met you when I had my own hair and beauty salon, and my main hairdresser had left, and I was looking for someone to come and help me out. And someone said, do you know Blessing? And I said, no. She said, oh, she does hair, but she's not a hairdresser, but she's very good. I can't remember if she said you were trained, but she said you were very good anyway. Anyway, you came through, I spoke to you, and the rest is history. You helped me out for a few months before I eventually had to sell and close the salon. Now, you came to the UK and you navigated, and I think the reason I brought this up is that what you were doing back home, what you learned from home, it's a skill you had picked up, and you still used it even years later in the UK. And that is what ended up connecting us, and probably connected you to so many other people. And that's so important, that when we acquire skills along our journey, don't devalue it, because they come in handy at different points, and it's never wasted. So I'm going to give you the mic again to now take us through how you then came into what you're doing now. So navigating through, I know you've done a bit in education, and then I know, in fact, you a lot that you said really, got me to understand a lot of what you do. Because the cake, I didn't even realize the cake baking how you paid for yourself to go and learn that, because you eventually what you do now is that. So I'll let you take it. Okay.
I think it's important what you're saying is very, very key. Vocational skills, you can never have enough of them. And I think, like what you're saying, I just think it's important to say is when I decided that I was going to come here, I always ask what is in my hand, and I had skills. So I made sure that I got a qualification to quantify that skill before I left.
Wow.
So my hairdressing, yes, I learned everything. I was fortunate enough to be with a mom who ran a vocational, back then was the NDE. So she had like what we in the UK, what we call MVQ school. So she had that. So I was exposed to a lot of skills. But I made sure I got my certification for hairdressing, for the baking, I got the certification because I was preparing to come out here. Yeah. So I didn't think when I come here, I'm going to become a cleaner.
Exactly.
I've got something to offer and I'm going to exchange my value. So I prepared myself. So got here. Of course, I've got education, experience. I've got, so I got here, started looking for a job immediately. I got an admission. My university then emailed to say that course wasn't running that year because they didn't have enough intake. So it meant I couldn't start immediately I got in. So I had more time to play with, so to speak. So I started looking for jobs within the education space. I tried out in a couple of primary schools, and then I ended up in a nursery school. I was lucky enough when I knocked on the door, it was the owner who let me in. So she interviewed me on the spot, said she was going to give me a trial, which she did. She loved me. She employed me. I started off maybe the next Monday. I started my career here.
Wow.
So I was working in nursery school. Of course, it's different from how things are done in Nigeria. So it took a minute to calm myself down. You know what I mean? So I got on with it. But she was quite invested in me. She would monitor me, maybe from the CCTV. If she sees I did anything wrong, she'll call me in and correct me. So I started off there, and the September of that year, I was able to get into another course and started schooling part-time, my psychology degree. So having done that job, I think it was about for a year, it's almost like I fast forwarded. I do fast forward myself in 5 years. Mentally I do look 5 years. What does this look like for me in 5 years? And I couldn't see myself in that space in 5 years. So I thought, okay, I need to find another space. So I told the lady that I would be looking for another job, not because I'm not grateful, but I need to advance. And there's not much room here. So I then got a job in Ofsted. I applied as a civil servant and got a job in Ofsted within the help desk team for inspectors. So I got in at the C1, whatever it was, as an administrator.
Just to come in here, for those that don't know what Ofsted is, what is Ofsted in the UK?
Ofsted is the Office for Education Standards. So they're the ones who manage the standards of education and inspect schools. So I got in as an administrator and started my career there as an administrator, and then of course rose in the ranks, went into help desk management and things like that. And then there was a vacancy for training administrator, a training coordinator it was called. So again, background in teaching, I was quite keen on it. So I said I would take it on without extra pay because they said they won't give it to me. But I had qualified for a B3, which is first line management, but there was no job per se for it. And I agreed to take it on. If I did the job well, in 3 months, they were going to give it to me. So they said, fine.
And that was what you negotiated for yourself. You see, I think this is important to stop here and emphasize that. I like how you said that you kind of look 5 years in advance to where you're going to be, or asking yourself the question, where do I see myself? And that's so powerful. You know how the Bible talks about vision, write your vision and have a vision. Vision is literally looking into the future to see. And it's asking yourself the question, what do I see? Do I see myself still doing this or rising? And that's planning. And when you give your brain something to plan for, something to see, your brain always takes you to that thing. It will help you navigate through it, and it's so powerful, and I like the way you said it, because that is what helped you leave that initial job to go into Ofsted and helped you within Ofsted to see an opportunity, the first thing you didn't do, oh, I need the money. What you're seeing more of is where is it taking you, because you knew where you wanted to go and you took it without pay, but negotiated. And I think that is so key, really negotiating what you want. A lot of times we don't, especially a lot of women hold back from negotiating what they want, but you did at that point and say, okay, let me do it for 3 months. And then you see, oh, that's so cool. Okay, continue.
Yeah. So I did that. And it turned out that whenever the head of department's PA was going on leave, for some reason, because I was the jack of all trade kind of person, I would be asked to sit in for her. So I used to feel very cool with myself. I have to move desk from being with mere mortals to sit on the other side where the head of department's, bless you, the head of department's desk was, and be her PA for a week or two whilst her PA was on leave. So that helped me a lot because it helped me with my communication skills, and I took advantage of it. I wrote her letters, I sent her emails. It really helped. So by the time this job came up and I was bold enough to say, I'll do it, see what I can do, which I did. So I got into training coordination, and part of the job was then to create away days for the staff. I've never done it before, but okay, let's try. So part of that was that of booking the venues, coming up with the agenda, so I said, just let me do it. You guys have nothing to lose. You're not paying me for it. If it goes wrong, you have lost nothing. If it goes right, you have gained so much. So the first away day, they gave me free rein, gave me a budget, and I managed it. I didn't spend all the money, but I gave us a beautiful away day. The agenda was spot on. The engagement, it worked. So of course, by the time we came back, I was pulled into a meeting on Monday. I was given the job, up my pay, bam, and that
you've never done anything like that before, had you?
Nope.
Wow. Nope. Wow.
I think, creativity. This is why I say I'm an event designer, not a planner, because design is my superpower. It doesn't matter what space I go into. It doesn't matter what it is. I can think from within and come up with an idea. I'll come up with a solution. So I use that, I suppose. I'm more conscious of it now, but then it was just a thing I did. But now I claim it's my superpower, and I know it's my strength, and so I play with it. So I did that, and that's how I got into designing conferences, planning away days, training courses, so that we would have a budget and people need training, and of course the money never meets. So you have to come up with creative ways to then make sure people do their key skills. So I then said, if I trained to be the trainer and I delivered it in-house, it would be cheaper for us. So a lot of times that's what I ended up doing to make my budget work. So I became a trainer myself to then cascade the training down to others. And I saved my organization quite a significant amount of money. But whilst doing, I was racking up my own skills, my own qualifications. Vocational training came in then. Everybody had to have their ITQ when the whole buzz of IT came on. And it was the IT department said they can't handle it. I thought, I'll do it, and I'm a yes person. So I got the training to deliver it, and I became an A1 assessor, went on to be a V1. I just kind of pushed my way through there.
Yeah.
And then fast forward a few years later, back to getting married, having kids, and coming over to Kent. Those skills had stacked up. So it was almost like that was the path. I just loved bringing people together. I loved gathering. I loved it. And I also loved designing. So you put 2 and 2 together, and what do you have then on a commercial level is to design events, but not just design events to bring people together, but with a purpose. I want to know what my client's KPI is. I want to know, why are you doing it? What is it you want to achieve? And then I work backwards, design backwards to make sure that need is met.
Gosh, listening to you and like I said, I've known you for years. A lot is falling into place for me. I'm thinking, okay, so this is how it started. And one of the things that I always find fascinating about you is your creativity. your dopamine, gosh, goes into drives. It kind of it's amazing the way your brain works. And then, that whole, if there's a problem, what can we do? And, it's interesting because as you're very creative in things, you're also creative with people. It's if somebody has a problem, how do I solve it for them? Your brain is constantly ticking that way. And now I see how the origin started, but the power in how you've leveraged it, how you've used it, how you've continued to really enhance those skills. Never, yes, I'm sure there are times you felt low, especially when, background, when things were not going as planned. But what's really got, pushed you is that, okay, what do I need to do? What's the solution? How do we navigate through this? And I think that is just commendable. So I want you to now share with us, okay, I know that your journey has been through the events planning. You have a cake. Cake is still one of your biggest passions. Talk to us about the cake business and talk to us about the event designing and what you do, because I know you do wedding as well. You do corporate events. Talk to us a bit about that, and I'm going to kind of drill a bit deeper into it. So
okay. So carried on in my career, and then after I think my second child. No. We have to go back to first child. It was her birthday, and we needed a cake, and I couldn't find anyone locally who could do what I wanted.
Problem. Yeah.
Okay, I couldn't find anyone who could do what I wanted locally. Yeah. So I thought, okay, how do I give myself what I want? So I went to a charity shop and I bought a baking book. I remember I still have it. It was £2.50. I still have the book. Wow. So I read it cover to cover, and I thought, I can do this. I've trained, even though how we do it there and how it's done here is different. I can find a way. There was no YouTube then or Google where, there's a hack for something. We didn't have it then. You had to read. So I bought the tins, I bought the ingredients. I did it, just got on with it. I've got the basic skills, by the way. So I followed the recipe. I baked the cake. I remember baking the cake and decorating it. I didn't put any fillings in the cake, because in Nigeria you don't put fillings. But here, So I made the cake and everyone loved it. And when I look at the pictures now, I'm like, oh my God. But I got so much praise for it. And people right then and then asked me to make their cakes for them. And I started making it. You, of course, you were one of those people who kept encouraging me, like, oh, I've got this coming up. Oh, it's Monday, make me a cake. Oh, it's Friday, I did a Friday cake,
I've still got pictures of your cakes that you made different times, because there was a time I was so into, I think it was Russell and Bromley, and you made a cake of Russell and Bromley bag or something for me. And but your cakes, even my children's cakes, I think it's the designs. And I think that's that creativity that kept coming through everything that you did. Okay, continue.
Yes, it was. It's definitely the design, So I made a few cakes, and after a few, I think I thought, these are people, friends of friends. So I kind of need to do things right. I'm always a person who likes doing things right. So I did what I needed to do, got my food license, as it were, to then make cakes from home, of course, and registered it as a small business on the side, because I still had my full-time job going. So I carried on doing that, and then with the cakes, it started to grow. I started making, people ask for wedding cakes. My neighbor's brother was getting married and wanted me to make the cake, and of course I had the panic. I'm sure we'll get to my panics. I had my panic, got over the panic. I did the cake. It was great. And I think it just grew from there. And then the design kept pushing through. And I saw that I wanted to style my cakes. So when someone orders a cake, I don't just deliver a cake anymore. The cake has a table that has a cloth, that has a this and has a that. And I did so many style shoots for magazines, and Kent's Wedding Magazine will call me and they need, can you feature this? And I'll start creating something and create a design and take the pictures and send to them. I was doing a lot of that, for the magazine. And then it dawned on me that, hang on, what this is it's design, it's styling. I want to do more than just the cake. And that's how I got into venue styling, because I already had event design going on, but my expression was growing. Yeah. So I started to look for specific fabrics, started to look for specific, and I went all the way, my search led me all the way to suppliers in China. So I was now designing my own sort of florals, flower walls, I'll come up with something and they can create it. And that honestly, it was like a kid in a sweet shop.
In a sweet shop.
It was exciting. It wasn't even about the money anymore. It was just, but of course I've got bills to pay. You've got to check the balance. You've got to make money.
I'm coming to that.
Yeah. So my creativity took the better side of me, and I was just creating and creating and creating for creating's sake. So that's how we went from Blackchair Cakes to Blessing by Blair, which is the design styling. That's what it was then, but it's grown up to become something else, but that's the journey into it, if that answers the question.
Yeah. No, that's really great, because I think I want you to continue a bit into where you're at now, because I'm going to go back, but just quickly into from the designing weddings to where you are now in terms of being international events and what you're doing now. So just take us the whole journey, because I'm going to go back a bit.
Go backwards. Okay, that's fine. So I'm doing my cakes, and I had a boutique where we made the cakes from, and also had a wedding planning sort of office in there.
So you literally created a proper business out of...
Yes. Oh, yes. Right. I had the two businesses, so Blackchair Cakes and Blessing by Blair. And then we had a premises where we worked from. And again, I had my 5-year plan thing. Where do I see myself in 5 years? And I thought, if I'm going to do event planning, I also want to take into account my corporate events past and experience. And I had tried to do it here within my sphere. There wasn't much... How do you put it? My skill set was not required in the space I was in. I'm back to space again. So I thought, okay,
what space was this at that time?
The Kent market.
Okay.
The Kent market. I was doing very well with cakes and stuff. Yes, but with the events, what I wanted to deliver didn't fit in my space. So I needed a new space. So I went back to my thinking self. I always ask myself, if you had a magic wand, what would you want? You have no restrictions. I thought, okay, I would want to do events in the oil and gas space. And I want to go international, and I want to start from my home country, Nigeria. So I want to do oil and gas events in Nigeria, and from there, take over the world. That was just my wish. I wrote it down. It's my 5-year plan. It's just between me and myself. Nobody's going to judge me whether I do it or not. It doesn't matter. But that was it. But as soon as I get one of those...
That was the desire.
That was it. And as soon as I get one of those things, I tend to go back to my fasting and praying. Now, when I say fasting and praying, it's because I've dreamed a dream that I think is bigger than where I am.
Spot on. Yes.
So the reason I fast and pray is I need to move myself to this new space, because if my brain doesn't live there, I can't get there. So I fast and pray not because I'm praying to God to come and save me. I'm praying because I know God has already saved me. So I need to just move myself spiritually, and my physical will follow. That's the simple way I can put it. So my fasting and praying is to hear, is to connect with, I'm one with God. So I need to remember who I am. So that's why I fast and pray. And as soon as I started fasting and praying, someone comes into my shop. I'm in my apron, covered in flour. I was finishing up a wedding cake, and I had a couple who came in. No, 3 people came in: husband, wife, and a daughter who was getting married. They sat with me, inquired about their wedding cake. We finished that consultation. But whilst I was happening, someone else, another gentleman, came in, and I asked him to wait, so which he did. So when I finished with these people and they left, I sat him down, and he had observed that on my screen, I did events and luxury events, and he could see, he was intrigued by what he had seen and my work that was on the screen. And so he just came in to say what it was he came to do, and we talked about it, and it wasn't of interest to me. He was selling something, but he then observed what was there and said, oh, he also did blah 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 blah, and the story, I think that's a different podcast on its own, but we connected, and it turned out that he was running events in Nigeria in the oil and gas space.
Thank you. I'm going to stop you there. That, like you said, that's a story for another time, or we might come back to it. But that then led to you running events in Nigeria in the oil and gas space. And that is just so powerful, because it was a desire you had, and then then it happened. Now, I want us to come back a bit into, you've told us how you've navigated different, you move from one space to another. How has that been? Because when you're saying it, it's like, okay, it's quite easy. You want to move into a space, and then you pray about it, and then you shift and you go. What's been the reality of moving into those spaces?
That's a good question. The reality. It comes down to a decision, first of all. I think it's a series of decisions. Decision is, what do I want? What do I want? And that's something you've taught me, even on a more advanced level now. What do I want? So once I'm clear on what I want, I convert what I want to an intention. So I write it down. I hope that's detailed enough. I write it down. And when I start to write, it starts writing as I want. That's fine. I just jot it down. Then I go back and rewrite it as present. I am, it's happening. I sometimes it doesn't happen immediately. Sometimes it takes me 3 months for that shift to take place. But
why do you do that?
Because I know that I can want till the cows come home. It makes no difference. The more I want, I'll just keep attracting, wanting more.
Spot on.
That's a waste of energy.
Yes.
And back to that, my saying of, if it is to be, is up to me. If I ask the right question, I'll get the right answer. So it's always down to what is the right question to ask. So I keep rephrasing my questions, and writing down is a very good thing, because if you just keep it all in your head, you don't know where you're at. Well, for me anyway. So I journal a lot. I write a lot. So I write down my questions. What do I want? What do I want? And I keep checking what I want with that 5-year dream or 5-year vision or 5-year plan. If it's not going to get me there, why am I praying for it? I think for me, that's the key thing, is if God answers that prayer I'm praying, is it going to fulfill the need? So I'm honest with myself, because I strongly believe that God can do anything. Anything is possible. That's it's not a scripture for me. It's a reality for me. Anything is possible. So I need to determine what the thing is. That's the role I have to play. So if I'm not clear on the thing, God is going to multiply whatever the thing I give is. So I need clarity on the thing, because when the blessing comes upon it and is multiplied, if I'm in minus and it's multiplied, I'm going to be more minus. If I'm in profit and it's multiplied, I'm going to have more profit. So I must be clear that the thing, I can attach the any to it, because anything is possible. So it's very important to be clear on the intention, and to be sure that the intention matches the goal.
Yeah, clarity. And how establishing that clarity, how do you do that?
By writing. I literally write.
So it's writing.
Yes. So I write, and I go back and read it again. And I can let this out of it, but I have an alter ego. I have Blessing and I have Ngozi.
I like that. These are her 2 names.
Yes. They're both my names. They're both me. Ngozi is the normal happy-go-lucky, whatever you like, default person. Blessing is a rewired brain that has been moored, like I always say. So often I come up with something, I have to then battle it between Ngozi and Blessing. So there's a debate going on. So I shifted from up here to down on my paper. So I'm now objective. I'm less emotive. I'm objective with it. So it's away from me. By writing it down, it's separated from me. I'm not emotive about it. I'm looking at it as though I was talking to somebody else. Because I'm very good at solving people's problems. Why can't I solve my own?
Absolutely.
So
let me just cut in a bit there, because what you've described is so powerful, that you've got your alter ego, you've got the Ngozi, you've got Blessing. And for everyone listening, it could be however you interpret it, it's up to you. But the truth is, your subconscious brain, in what's in memory, is going to battle anything you're bringing in consciously, because what you have in your subconscious is your memory, is your beliefs, are those experiences that you've had growing up, like Blessing has just described her own experiences from childhood. A lot of those will come out, especially when you're now coming up with something new. Oh, but this is different. Your brain, your subconscious brain wants to keep you safe, protected. And you see, we're all wired differently. As well, I'm listening to you, I can tell immediately that your frontal part of your brain, that dopamine, is really what drives a lot of what you do. And that dopamine is, that right side of the brain is where we have a lot of that connecting with people, building relationships with people, where people matter to you. The problem is, to be able to be objective, you've got to quieten that dopamine bit down, and the estrogen, you've got to quieten it down a bit to be able to activate the serotonin so that you can think and analyze and evaluate. The problem is that many people don't know how to quieting one part and activate another part. They feel that, oh, I'm just creative, so I'm just in that creative space. It's your brain. It's knowing how to navigate this. And I know, Blessing, you talked about mooring, being moored. All it is coaching to enable you understand how to navigate your brain. You did talk about, let me not deviate a bit. So those two, literally, is your subconscious and conscious brain at battle. So it's knowing how to navigate that. So you've got the Ngozi, you've got the Blessing, and you've developed a way of being able to detach the emotion from is it the Ngozi? It detach the emotion from the Ngozi, so that you can really be realistic, so that Blessing can step in and then go, okay, this is what we're doing, or this is what we need to remove or add, and be able to do that. So thank you for bringing it up, because that's really important in understanding where we need to go and connecting, even hearing from God. So we're praying, we're hearing. Are we hearing the right? Is this what God is saying to me? Is it in line with what I'm doing, or where I'm going? Is it actually God speaking or not? So all those things are so important. So thank you. So continue.
I think it's important to add that Ngozi she's very feely. She feels, she feels it all. And I'm conscious of, yes, and I'm conscious of my feelings, and my feelings to me is an indication of what I'm thinking. So my feelings is not a spiritual thing. It just indicates what I'm thinking, either consciously or subconsciously.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
When I have certain feelings, I have to ask, why am I feeling that way?
Spot on. Yes.
Why am I having feelings?
Exactly.
Ain't that deep? So when I'm aware of how I'm feeling, I'm aware of what I'm thinking. And the truth is, I have the power to change my thoughts.
Yes.
My thoughts don't determine me. I determine my thoughts. So if I can change my thinking, then I can change my feelings.
Emotions. Absolutely. Yes.
And that's what I teach my kids, even I've got teenagers. So of course you've got the whole, and I have taught them, and I keep teaching, it's a choice.
Absolutely.
If you let your feelings determine your day, you have no control over your day. And I say the same to myself. So whenever I feel the feelings, what's going on?
Yeah. It's asking the question. You've got to stop and ask your brain the question. why am I feeling this way? Because your brain will give you the answer, because a lot of times those emotions or feelings are below our consciousness. And that's why you can suddenly be feeling something and then going, oh, what's going on here? If you don't stop and ask your brain the question, you will just go with that emotion in the wrong, where your brain is taking you. Your brain is only acting on the information it has, and that's your subconscious brain. And that's what drives 90% or even more of what we do. So what we want to do is consciously take that control back. So thank you, Blessing. Continue.
Yeah, and guaranteed my feelings will never align with my dreams or my visions. So I have to teach them to follow me, because if I wait for when I feel right to do something, I'll be waiting a long time. So anyway, continuing on, I've gone in and I'm designing events internationally now, and I'm excited. I'm in this space, and I went into a space that was bigger than me, and it was like when you take a koi fish out of a fish bowl and put it in a pond, and all of a sudden you're like, so this fish could be this big. I watched myself, and I watched you watch me just become. I just became, so when I make that statement, it's not a fancy word, it's a real thing. I watched myself become more than I thought I was. So the question then came, could there be more? So I was no longer hungry. I became greedy. I want more. I can be more. I can be more. So I did a lot of work with you in my identity, because it shifting, and I think for us as women, shifting from identifying who you are with what you do, that is a big thing on its own. So what I do does not determine who I am. Who I am will influence what I do. But it took me a minute.
Can you repeat that again?
Okay. What I do does not determine who I am. Who I am is what will determine what I do.
Yeah.
It took me a minute to align with that statement, because I struggled with my identity. Coming into this space, I desired it, I want it, I'm here. I struggled. There was many
Can
calls.
you go a bit into that? What was the struggle?
The struggle was, why am I here? What can I offer? Oh my God. What are they expecting of me? Oh, can I even do it? What do I think I'm doing here? I'm just a this. People just say imposter syndrome, but I have a different take on it now. But then, my goodness, I didn't think I should be there. I really struggled with, yes, I'm here. I desired it and I worked my way there or whatever. But every year I always had every year it was a case of, oh my God, what am I supposed to do here? And I saw that feeling affected my work. Because I didn't value, I lost sight of my value in the space I was in. It affected my delivery because of my confidence.
Yeah.
But I think the advantage of having a coach is you can be honest and come to the table with that, and again being coached to think correctly. It's just someone to help you with your thinking, but it's back to a feeling. It's a feeling. Yeah. It's just a feeling. Yeah. So that feeling is an indication of what you're thinking, whether it's consciously or unconsciously. So we go back to that cycle again. So my thinking had to be almost manual. I had to let go of autopilot fully and manually think.
Intentionally.
I had to think. I had to write so many. I was going through books, one book a week from my thinking. When I wake up in the morning, I write down every morning who I am, what I am, my intention, what I'm great. I took the deliberate steps to do it for months, maybe up to a year of consolidating. I had to reprogram my brain. I had to rewire my brain. I had to tell my brain how to think. Yes, we're this, we're that, but this is to move forward. This is how I want you to think. And using the tools that I gained from the Mindset Academy, I was able to put it to work I'm not someone who learns for learning's sake or to express that I've learned something or take joy in knowing. I want to do. I want to action. And for me, the Bible, the scripture isn't a storybook. I'd rather have 5 scriptures that make sense and I can put to work than the whole, So, because again, if you think about it, back to my, if it has to be, it's up to me. I need to know what I can do and just give me action to take. So for me, I think from being that in that space to, if that is possible, what's next? And I open myself up. And there's more coming, if I put it that way.
Blessing, that's awesome. You know what? We're going to have to do a part 2 because we can go on and on, because your journey has just been amazing in terms of how you've learned to take that control back of your brain, how to manage the emotions, which is emotional intelligence, basically, understanding the brain, understanding the emotions, understanding that you are in control. One thing that I want us to touch on before we round up today is you did mention that when the first person came to you and asked for a cake for, I think it was a wedding or family thing, you panicked. Now, I want to talk to us about how you navigated that panic, because I know there was also a time, and you see, this is so important, whereby, and you did mention it briefly, every time you're going to step up, panic would set in. The reason why is that it's unknown to your brain. So your brain doesn't know it, so it wants to protect you from it. So you panicked at that stage. I know there was a time you did your first international wedding. You panicked as well. Can you just talk to us about this and how you navigated it, how you lead? Because we've been talking about rewire your brain. How did you do it?
Okay, so I can talk about, I think the wedding one is one that I would want to talk about. I had my first destination wedding booked, and I went out with the bride a couple of times, sourced the venue, did all that. Now, this is the night before the wedding itself. Everyone is there. I've done my job. I've brought everyone there. It's just before we hit go. I had a severe panic attack. I didn't sleep at all that night. I did not sleep 1 week. I went to the venue several times the evening before just to cross-check and recheck, and it was all good. But that night I didn't sleep. I was in a pool of my own sweat. It's the biggest thing I had done at the time. And in the morning, as God would have it, and I'm grateful. I always say to you, I'm grateful for you. You rang me all the way in Rome where I was. And I picked up the phone, and you could tell I wasn't okay. And I told you what was going on. I don't even know if I was able to articulate my words. But you then told me it was amygdala hijack. And true to form, when you come up with these things, I just want to understand what's going on. So you told me what it was, and I was like, good, there's a diagnosis. What's the cure? Straight up, So I think it shifted me slightly from what I'm panicking about to, there's a problem to solve. There's something else I need to learn. Quick, what is it? And I remember standing in front of the mirror when you were talking to me. Maybe you told me to go to the mirror. So I started in front of the mirror with my phone, and I remember because that's the vision I have of it. And you explained to me what was happening, the science behind the amygdala hijack. So I understood fully the science of what is going on. Good. Now, what do I do? So you started asking me questions. Why are you here? Why did they hire you? Blah, blah, blah. You know this stuff. You were able to ask me questions for me to answer that brought me back into the room. Because I had panicked and let fear. I was afraid of the unknown.
Yes.
I was afraid of the unknown. And I'm not, if I'm thinking about it now, what was the unknown? I don't know. It's a wedding. I've done many of them before, but now I can say that. But at that time, but when you bring it into context and you can separate the feelings again,
exactly.
You realize it's just another step, So I think rewiring of the brain for me will forever be with me, because I'm forever going to be changing. So it's being comfortable with the change.
Absolutely.
When you allow yourself resist the change, you resist growth.
Yeah.
And I know you started off with a while back about growth mindset, and that exposed me to I can actually program myself to be in that mode.
Yeah.
If you choose to have a growth mindset, you have to choose the discomfort that comes with it. Absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's okay. It's okay to not know. And there's something I wrote down back then. I said, if I can't get rid of the fear to do it, I will do it afraid.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So as soon as I realized that the fear is not, I don't need to get over the fear to do it. Fear, you're welcome to come along with the ride. I find that as soon as I open the door for the fear to come into the car, you don't hear from the fear anymore. So maybe I'm mumbling, but for me,
it makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense.
For me, you talked me off the ledge that day with whatever it was you said, because you made me look into myself to see who I was. You are good at what you do. That's why someone took you from where you were. There's a reason. And they're paying you for it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
So how did the wedding go after that?
Oh,
how
my
did
God.
it go?
It still brings tears to me. It was such a bliss. It was so amazing. I'm still in touch with the family, you know. It was just an amazing event. It was just an amazing event. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to have done it and others since then. And I think it's important to note that this thing we call imposter syndrome is an indication of growth. We're just going outside of our box.
Exactly.
It's not a negative thing. It's a very positive
thing. Exactly. And you see, I think you saying that is so important because it all comes down to perspective. Yes. It all comes down to how you interpret anything. And the way you interpret it will become your reality. It will be the reality for you. Because what you described that you experience, it's what we call imposter, but it's growth. It's opportunity to grow. And even as a Christian, we say when God gives you a vision or gives you something that is bigger, you know, some people call it God-sized vision or God-sized dream. It's bigger than you. And because it's bigger than where you are now. That's what it is. But to be able to get there, you've got to stretch. You've got to exercise those muscles. Like when you're going to the gym and you want to build your muscles, you've got to, but a lot of times we shy away from that uncomfortability of the pain or the challenge or the resistance. What we need to do is really push through.
Embrace it. You have to embrace it.
Exactly.
You know,
exactly.
You have to push, you have to look for imposter syndrome situations because that means you're growing. Yeah. You have to go and look for it. You have to go and look for it. Because the more you have it, the more you're growing. And once you overcome something once, you've overcome it. You know, so don't overcome and say, oh, I've overcome. Thank God I'm here now. No, don't settle. Keep going, keep pushing because we're forever, because we are limitless. You know,
thank you.
Is the extent, I'm curious to see the extent to which I can grow. I want to know what else there is within me. I want to know what else I can do. What problems can I solve? I want to see the next version of Blessing. What is it going to be? Who is she going to meet? You know, I'm curious to see what's next for me.
I love that. I love that. I'm going to bring this to a close for now because the next podcast, guys, watch out, is going to be the next phase of where Blessing got to. But Blessing, can you just tell us quickly what you're working on now? Because I know you've got an event coming up soon. And if you just talk to us about what's Blair Global and what you're doing at the moment.
Okay, so Black Global is an international business relations consultancy, again, an offspring from other things that we've done in the past. So at this point, it's facilitating market entry either into the UK or from UK to other parts of the world. So businesses who want to take themselves global, we can help facilitate that. And we do that through our connections, collaborations, and just the human capital. cutting through red tape to get you to where you want to be. We've got an event coming up in October, 21st of October, the Empower Gala. Again, it is simply to inspire and empower people. We're looking to recognize those who have done quite a lot in the Kent community, and also to inspire those who are just joining or the younger generation that anything is possible. Where you are is not the determining factor, not where you are physically, but where you are mentally is what determines where you end up. Like I keep saying about space. It's important to identify the space you're in. If the space you're in isn't big enough, just like when you have a child, you put them in a crib, then a cot, then a baby bed, then you move them on to a single bed, then you move them on to a double bed. Do you see what I mean? You have to increase your space in order to grow.
Exactly.
And it's important that you do that for yourself as an individual, so personal development, and that you also do that for your business development. You can't just develop the business without yourself, or develop yourself without the business. So for us at Black Global, it's about looking at the holistic way to make sure you get to your global goals. That's kind of what we do in Black Global.
Thanks so much. And where can people find you?
Oh, on the internet. You can go to Google. If you type in my name, it comes up. Ooh, but anyway,
awesome.
you can go to blackglobal.co.uk, and we're across all social media platforms as well with the handle Black Global.
Awesome. I'm going to put all the links in the description as well, so you can click on them. Blessing, thank you so very much for coming on. I knew this podcast would be long, but it's just full of so many nuggets. Thank you for opening yourself up to us. And I know we're going to do a part 2 to really look at the journey of going deeper into how you actually navigated it, because now I love it, because your business is called Black Global. You wanted to be global, and you are global. Every time we ask Blessing, where are you now? Oh, I'm in Rwanda, I'm in Dubai, I'm here. It's just amazing to have a desire and go for it. But actually, and we're going to go into that, in a bit of detail in terms of how you navigated that path. So finally, can you give our listeners one final word of wisdom? You've given us so much, but just give us something to take away with finally.
Okay, I think I'll repeat one of the ones I've said before, which is, if you cannot get rid of the fear to do it afraid.
Do it afraid. Thank you so much. The other thing I'm going to add to that is, I love that analogy where you described, you opened the door and said, you know what, fear, come in and drive with us, but we are still going. We are going, and that is doing it afraid. The fear is coming along and it's coming with you. The fear is not coming in and stopping you. You're still driving. You're still moving. And that's so important. Thank you so much, Dr. Blessing Enakimio. It's such a joy to know you. It's such a joy to have worked with you all these years. And I am so pleased that you're in my space and I'm in your space. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you. Thank you.